We finished a little early down there, so.
Okay. Yeah, yes. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Andrew. I've been mentioned. You probably seen. This is the systems administration and reports thing, where we talk about systems administration and system preferences and questions and issues y'all are facing or excited about. And then we talk about reports, then we talk about SQL stuff, and I don't know. What do y'all want to talk about first?
And try to shout, because my computer is broadcasting this to 4 other people that are out there in the ether somewhere watching. So,
has anyone had fun with the system preference lately?
Yes.
Well, do tell.
This morning I turned on BRM and all my coworkers texted me like, "What the hell did you do?"
They're really on the call. If you turn on BRM, like a button shows up and they freak out. Cool.
I guess you have to sit in the middle.
They really should have.
There's one over there too.
There's like 3 people downstairs. We all came up here.
I mentioned the scheduling issue. Everybody that was downstairs came upstairs. Everybody that was upstairs, not everybody, but a lot of them went downstairs.
Sorry, I'm paid.
Now you have to ask.
So
What's your favorite system preference?
I'm Jason and I'm a koha.
Yeah, we didn't like do introductions because there are a lot of us that you have.
My favorite system preference. I could probably internet user data.
Same here.
Did they rename GIST? I don't think it's called GIST anymore. That's my favorite, which was where you put sales tax for some reason in a system preference called GIST. I don't know. When I was saying what we talked about in this meeting, Ben excitedly said SQL in my ear. So Ben, do you have SQL things you want to talk about? I don't. You just said system administrator, of course, oh, I got it. Fair enough. Oh, I was hoping you had a burning SQL question.
Well, we were looking at that table merge ticket downstairs. Would you give me an idea for that reason?
Oh, the one to come. This is now often what we do on the SIG.
Report stuff.
What is that bug number? Do you happen to remember? I can find it. We talk about bugs that we're all scared of. There is a bug that has a number and it
starts with 1.
yeah, that sounds right. Good software. Anyway, there's this bug that suggests, you know how in Koha we've got a biblios table and a deleted biblios table and an items table and a deleted items table? There is some talk in the community about combining those tables so you'd have one biblio table, and if that biblio was deleted, it would have a deleted flag on it, which makes a lot of sense and would make reports easier to write going forward, but would hose all of your old reports, well, not all of them, but many of them, deeply and confusingly.
Well, don't they talk about the bug upgrading with views though? Well, even like it's 2027.
Yeah, okay, so 20271 is the bug suggesting the merging biblio items, biblio metadata, and items tables. So all the things that touch a bibro. Because they all have current and deleted comment points. Yeah, there's a follow-up bug 2521 that says, hey, if we merge all these tables, we should make sure to include some tool to automatically fix your reports.
I don't want people messing with my reports automatically.
Does anybody remember back in like 2018 or so, did people change? What was it? Lost. Yeah. There was a change to how lost statuses were reported. And there was a similar like bug to do a big update to fix your reports.
It just broke a lot of mine.
Yeah, I started working for Bywater like a little bit after that, and my general impression was that it had not gone
I think they stopped to the point where by the time we upgraded, they were no longer automatically updating reports. They were just flagging the reports that needed updating.
That's
So they said, right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't super trust a script to update reports accurately. Like, there's just sort of enough variables in how neat things could be phrased, but that's.
My reports are so cool, all it did was make them uncool.
I get a couple of thoughts about the idea in general. One is that then when you write it, let's say they do combine the deleted tables into one thing, then you have to constantly always remember to add that to your where clause.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you might not want to be talking, finding things with deleted items or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, now there are a lot of reports where you need to
You need to do the opposite.
items and deleted items. And,
Merge them together and
Yeah.
you join them together and then create a.
yeah, and that's wonky in its own way.
And it slows the query down.
Yeah. Anyway, this 20271 is currently in discussion. In discussion, as it's bug status, and that does tend to be where bugs go to die. I don't know the stats on bugs getting out of in discussion, but I don't think they're great. So I guess I'm not, and this I know has been in discussion for a while. So I don't know that I'm imminently frightened of its progress. But it's a bug that I'm CC'd on, and if it moves, I look and see what happens.
It's a bug that I think that a lot of people have some hesitation for.
Yeah,
But then there are some people, even here at this conference, Christopher Brennan, who are true believers in this and really want to push on it. So,
yeah, I don't know if I've commented on this bug. I haven't decided how I feel.
We know why he's not here to defend himself. We know why he's.
he just thinks it's a good idea, so he wants to push forward.
I mean,
with it.
the
I had a lot of comments in the bugs.
Yeah.
There is a part of me that's like aesthetically, I do think it's a good idea, but I don't know what practical problems it solves. And I'm just gonna.
I think the practical problem it solves, as far as he's concerned, well, for one thing, it does make writing reports when you need to have items and deleted items and results easier, but then it adds this problem where just getting non-deleted items, you have to make sure to exclude the things that are in the table from the report. But the other thing that it does is it means that there could be something as simple as unclicking that deleted flag would restore the item back to the, instead of having to go and call Bywater or talk to tech support and say, we need to undelete this bibliographic record, you would just be able to unclick that flag and it would be undeleted instantly.
Which is
Because right now it has to be moved from, the deleted biblio data needs to be moved back into biblios, the deleted biblio items data needs to be moved back into biblio items, the deleted item data needs to be moved back into items. There's a lot of things that have to be moved from table to table. And if it's just a checkbox in that table that moves it from deleted to not deleted status, that's really simple.
Now, does Mariah need support these? Like, so you could make some sort of pseudo tables?
I don't think so. I think they talk about that and thought about creating these. Yeah,
it's also worth noting this bug was filed in 2018.
yeah.
So it could be been in discussion for a long time. The last comment I see on here is a long post from a developer in France saying, I appreciate that this seemed like a cool idea, but like it's a really hard bug to move forward and no one's getting paid to do it. And like, how is this supposed to work ever? So I don't know.
It does seem like a view would be the easiest thing to implement, because that's just like basically having a query on the back end, making a temporary table. If you want to use that like unified table, you just use that view and you write your SQL for that one. Otherwise, you don't have to change any of your existing reports.
I got something like with the old, what happens right now if you delete a bit and it goes into old deletion, is it keeping the same video number?
It is.
Yeah.
So you want to retain, and you're never going to retain the same number. If you move it back into Biblio,
I don't know how, I've never moved one from deleted back to Biblio because somebody in Bywater does that on those rare occasions. Honestly, with my staff, what I say is, well, you deleted it, go get another one.
But generally, whenever you delete and restore it back, it retains the same number. Yeah. It's, yeah, it retains the same number, because generally tables will have a auto increment and that sort of thing. So because that's already created, nobody takes, new record won't take that space. So it will retain the same number if it can be restored. Yes. Yeah.
So I guess my feelings on this whole idea are kind of neutral, because I can see where, yeah, I'm gonna have a bunch of reports that'll break. But I don't think it's a horrible idea, but I'm also not the one that has to write the code that makes it do that. And all of this being said, I guess the part where I would say I'm neutral about it is I don't see a problem with the idea. I know it's going to create some work for me. I'm also not going to fund it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the ultimate vote here is, it's something that if somebody wants to fund it and it goes through, I can live with it. But if nobody funds it, I'm not going to be the one that steps up and does that. So.
It's up and start performing. We're facing a lot of issues in our social topics and possibly and if we have a lot more goods, a lot more items, all in one big place, are we what's gonna happen there? I did some metrics on our large periodicals, and it's about 42 items per second. It's like not good.
One, I can see how periodicals in particular, like, if you're not scraping each like past years, issues out as those go away, like if
Forget it here, we've got 72 branches, and we think about a weekly, like, People magazine, so 52 times 72.
and I suppose
3,500 plus whatever the twos give you. And that's a lot more than 100 that the trainer suggested as a max on record. But you take that by 42 items, and you get a lot of seconds that would take the load just for 1 year.
and I guess I would like to think that having records that are deleted, that can be coded such that those don't add to the load time, because it's not trying to display them, but I'd
be very concerned.
yeah, I mean, as with everything, the devil's in the details, and it would be good if it was done well.
Have you ever experienced a super big phenomenon?
I think that's what we have is super big.
No, that it doesn't even display.
And that's caused by an overly like bid record rather than number of items, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
I know that I've experienced.
It's on our newspapers.
Yeah.
It's the number of items, because that table is so big, because there's so much HTML on the page. I think that's what.
Do you know what the limit is? I don't think anybody can really give us a number.
I think it varies on the size of the mark record, the number of kilobytes of the mark record is taken.
We don't run into it because we've always worked around it. So like we have a record for every lever, for every periodical, so it never floats that much.
What is a backend database? Sorry, I get it on my
Yeah.
Is it a computation or a? It is. But to answer your question, consortiums, for big consortiums, I mean, 100,000 records is nothing. I mean, as you can imagine, some of these online stores and all of them, they handle millions of records every day. But the point is, it escalates the cost. For example, I don't know how Bywater supports the hosting. We take care of our own hosting. For example, we have our student records. We have 11,000 students. On an average, each of them registering for 10 courses in an academic. And sometimes some of our reports get pulled across the year. So the point I'm saying is, the number that you call for is not another big number, technically speaking. But again,
For the consortiums, depending on the total number of reviews and items that you have, you have to talk to buy volume to increase the instance size. Because in cloud hosting, mostly they might be doing cloud hosting. So in cloud hosting, there are different parameters. I mean, at the back end, you can monitor how many disk IOs they're doing. It's kind of little technical stuff, but there are solutions.
Firewalls that all take resources.
Yeah,
It's all, it is a code efficient.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would be.
So again, it goes actually both, the database as well as code and, you know.
Actually, I do have something to discuss then. So one, I don't even know how to move forward with this, but working on making koha high availability is been on my priority list for a long time. So containerizing it and then working with some kind of orchestration tool.
Scalability.
So I don't know what people feel about that, like if you think high availability is a priority for you. But I know that it's already Dockerized, and so you could put it in Kubernetes or something, and it's like, but that is very high on my priority list.
And that stuff I don't know anything about. I have been in the Zoom room for conversations with Bywater about that general idea of getting a server environment that will scale up automatically as the person needed. That is so outside of anything I know anything about.
We use high availability services in our, like, city uses them in our environment in our Docker Swarm, but so like it's that, like, all the tools are there, but it's just there's a lot of work to do.
But consortiums definitely have to consider scalability. You know, it's not now, in the near future.
Sure.
Otherwise, what happens is that the whole objective gets diluted. Because when people experience slowness in queries and reports, they complain. We'll be better off, you know, having our own independent system. So definitely scalability has to be brought to the service program.
I was also thinking, aside from like the efficiency of like koha in the back end, like you get the data that you want when you load a page. There's also like on the front end, there's a limit to how many DOM elements you can add on a page. So like if there are like some pages that are very slow to load, like maybe you could think about, like, do all these columns have to display? Because if you display those columns, maybe you can get the page to load faster. Or I don't know what else can happen, but like if you can sort of think about the browser has to also render all that data. And if you have like maybe possibly jQuery customizations and then a lot of data, and it has to go through and find all of those IDs on that page. If there's so many DOM elements, it could be just like there's other factors aside from just the server performance.
Yeah, well, I think that is the problem with Superbase is it is not necessarily a database issue, but it is exactly what you're talking about. It just can't display. So better packaging.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen a lot of bugs over the past like year or two that have been some variation on. We've realized that this page is displaying things in some highly inefficient manner that has been fine all along, but suddenly we've got a big enough library that it's just not. And so I think we're seeing some growing pains there that hopefully we're working toward resolution.
We have that issue with purchase suggestions, because we want to keep them, but every time the purchase suggestion is loads all of them.
Yeah, and about that.
Yeah, I think it's worse.
You archive them, then it won't load them, but you can still get them back later.
Yeah, but we want. Usually you see the purchase suggestions, that's a pretty common request. And you can, so Pedro can't right now see that.
Is it a bug created?
Yes. In fact, I think it's about a year ago, because the privacy settings is the other, right now we use, it saves your purchase suggestions forever when it should And they give George's suggestion, follow the data privacy. Set.
Right. So I remember suggesting it. I wonder if I opened the bug about that. I might have.
Yeah, no, there is a bug.
There is a bug.
Yeah.
Actually, from, because this is certain group, I can provide download for. I mean, generally, I mean, these days, other applications, I rarely hear somebody using Photo at this point of time. But that also kind of is a barrier for somebody to just jump in. But
Yeah.
it's all right, but I mean, we can change that now, but.
No, I think you're right. I mean, when I talk to software people, who aren't library koha people, and I say, "This is what I know, we're gonna see it's written in Perl," they give me weird looks.
Yeah,
And I like, so we've talked so much in this conference about the developments that we all want to see and trying to like get attention for them. And a whole bunch of that is the bottleneck of there aren't enough people writing code in the community for the amount of stuff people want to happen. I kind of suspect that we could get the biggest dump truck full of money in the world and roll it to the Bywater headquarters that don't exist. And say, "We want this." Like there's no amount of money that can make that happen faster. Because that's just, I mean, because there's the amount of money that hires 1,000 people and like, but the log jam is people and time.
How many people here attended or watched virtually the KohaCon in Helsinki? Just like 2 people besides me, or Barbara watched a little bit. I got up every night at like 2:30 in the morning and watched it, and I had fun. But the international KohaCon next year is going to be in Montreal. And the Perl people that were at the conference in Helsinki, it was a joint Koha PearlCon. And so the Perl people from the conference, particularly Andre, says he wants there to be Perl people at the KohaCon in Montreal. And the Koha people that were there, the International Perl Conference is going to be in Las Vegas in 2025. And the Koha people want to make sure that some Koha people go to the Perl Conference and that there be some sessions about Koha so that maybe there is an opportunity to get more Perl people interested in developing Koha, because for all these years we've been using Perl as Koha's programming language, and Koha has been going on by itself, and the Perl community has been going on by itself, and they've never really connected until this conference in that kind of way. And so this would be my way of plugging Montreal and Las Vegas as something that maybe some of us should think about going to. I'm in a position where I don't ask for many conferences, and I think my boss will say Montreal, yes, and Las Vegas, maybe. It kind of, for me, it kind of depends on when it's going to be in Las Vegas. If it's going to be like in the middle of August, maybe I don't want to go. But Montreal, I'm perfectly fine with. The one thing that I worry about with the International KohaCon in Montreal is that they're talking about doing it in September, which is when, for the last 4 years now, 5 years now, we've had this conference. So we need to kind of keep some awareness about that. For all of you people, I know everybody in this room is thinking, I want to have koha-US at my library next year. Maybe Fargo in January wouldn't be a bad time to do it, because that would interfere with Montreal.
Funny you mention that. Well, spring maybe. I mentioned this to Chris, but my colleagues across the river are Evergreen, and their Sys Admin is like essentially their Christopher. He runs their website and stuff, so he's very involved in the project. I think it would be kind of fun or interesting anyway to do like a parallel conference. We'll do both the conferences at the same time. We're really close to each other.
Yeah, if we could do an Evergreen conference, an Evergreen Koha conference, that would be fascinating.
I think it's a real possibility, but it would pop their conferences this spring. So that would be.
That would be interesting. So that's my plug for getting people to go to Las Vegas for the ProCon and Montreal for the koha.
That's what I was like, man, I'd like to go to Vegas, but there's just no convention.
I haven't been to Las Vegas since I was a kid. And I wasn't old enough to gamble or drink, so bring it on. Awkward silence until somebody says something.
I mean,
Yeah. That's the most popular one at this point. PHP, yeah. Yeah, PHP and.
Which I think evergreen would be.
I think it is, yeah.
that feels like we're back at the same problem of merging the tables, like, that would have been a cool thing to do up front, but I don't know if I trust us to do it now. We might have made our, that might be koha, whatever.
Technically, there isn't anything wrong with Perl, it's perfectly vast and sort of cool.
But there's a barrier to finding and code.
It does generally seem like if we started going to computer science programs and saying, we want to work out this cool internship where we give your people an opportunity to learn real world, to have real world coding experience, they'd say, cool. And then it would ask, what language is it? And we would say Perl, and they'd say, oh, never mind. We don't have a Perl program, we don't teach Perl.
That was one thing they mentioned at the Perl conference is that people said, you know, we've been hearing Perl is dead for 25 years.
Yeah.
And here they're having an international conference with like 100 attendees who all write Perl. And apparently the turnout was low because there was a barrier of going to Helsinki for a lot of people. Hopefully Las Vegas is a lower barrier.
But anyway, the quick Google search says that the code can be converted online. While it may not be 100% usable just like that. If that is the case, you know, everybody can do it. But the point is probably that itself should be considered as an item that need to be supported by someone. Yeah. You know, because there are some even professionals that do that sort of thing. That's called PHP conversion. Sure. But again, remember gravity thoroughly tested. That's a whole way. Oh my goodness. When any project, any legacy projects to be migrated to the latest technology, that's the biggest headache. Because all these things are stable and settled, and now you're starting afresh. You got to go through, you know, a series of testing and all of that. That's what these are a lot of people. They stick to the legacy applications, which still work good. That's it.
Like doing a very lazy initial bug illustration, see if someone has filed, we should move away from Perl. Not see it immediately, but didn't spray that in there.
We've used all the developers together.
That's. And the Perl is still, there are so much things that they use. It's not a big thing.
There was a presentation where one of the people wrote an AI that can write Perl code, and he asked the questions about koha, and it had a basic understanding of koha. So maybe there's potential there to relieve the bottleneck, but it's pretty easy with
ChatGPT or like koha report. Yeah.
I have code in my jQuery that was written by ChatGPT, but they didn't tell me that I put it there. They being my boss's husband.
Since this is this admin group, you take the responsibility in your organizations for the disaster recovery? God forbid, if something goes wrong with my water, somebody hacking, I just say for argument's sake, what's your backup plan? Oh, did you think?
Yeah, like I think my library's backup plan is call Water.
Yeah.
In a panic.
I don't think I think you might be the only person in the room who isn't supported by Bywater.
well, not what we pay, that's part of.
That's part of what we pay for, yeah.
Is that,
Their backup plan is, I think it's once a month, they do a complete 100% backup of the server and the data. And then there's a weekly backup of there's a weekly backup of the data and a nightly snapshot of the MariaDB. I think when Larry was still at Bywater, he told me if you guys went down this afternoon, I could have you back to where you were the day at the beginning of the day within 4 hours.
Maybe your cell phones do like still supported at most cell phones.
So we are the only ones that pay.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you have the data is on your own server, right?
Servers, but even then, nightly we send back.
Right.
But we host our own thing. But the point is, I mean, I'm just going it to the standard best practices are, it's a 3-2-1 rule.
Right.
A 3-2-1 rule means, okay, you have a firewall supporting you. That's a source, but you need to have 2 other sources of backups at any given point in time. Because what if, I mean, if something happens, they can't even get back on their feet for 2 days, for 3 days, for a week. How do you survive?
We're
So
screwed.
the point is, the point is, you have to think about it. Because the library staff, they look at you. I mean, you are the Sys Admin, and we are the IT people. So the point is, we have our applications running in Amazon Cloud, and as our friend said, some applications are outside of Amazon Cloud, but all the backups go to Amazon Cloud. That's our secondary source. But again, we try to have a backup locally, because what if our fiber optic cable that connects us to America is not. It happened in the past, and satellite internet connection is very expensive. The point I'm saying is, it's not a bad idea, I mean, to have something on you in your own organization as a exact similar setup, and then you can test it also. You should also test the backups on a regular basis.
How do you test your backups?
I mean, if you have the same koha version,
Right.
and I don't know how Bywater posts it. For example, in case of Amazon, you can take the entire cloud instance image and you can replicate it wherever you want to replicate it. There are other third-party companies that provide this service. So whatever physical server you have, you can bring that image and put it there and use the latest backup from Bywater.
But what I'm saying is, like, what is your procedure for ensuring that backup is moved?
I mean, we have to run some basic checks like the number of transactions on a particular day. You may have a report, regular reports, or how many videos, video items, things like that. I mean, what we do is, for example, some applications, we automatically send reports. So we know precisely by the end of this week, let's say total number of videos, they can be automated. You can use that as a reference point, things like that, to verify that these many books were issued in this week. When you restore your backup, you can verify that with that request point. I mean, there are ways and means we can think of what can be the checks and balances when you are verifying the data. Because a lot of times organizations, they keep taking the backups, but they never test the backup. And then when on fine day, when things go wrong, you figure out that something is not working. So that is something, and again, it is not expensive. For example, even for some of the public libraries, to have your own server and all of that, it's kind of too much to deal with. But there are solutions available where you pay probably 50 US per month. You can have a sort of sandbox element. But depending on the size of your organization, depending on the consumptions that some of you have, you can budget for it. You're not right away, you know.
I'd be interested to hear if any Bywater partner libraries out there are doing like their own secondary backup plan or security of some sort. I honestly don't know.
But our city does have a disaster recovery plan.
Sure.
So we're lucky enough to have professional IT departments. All of the servers are backed up on a regular basis. They take backups even for data. And theoretically could be restored in a new location today. Now, realistically, how often we're actually storing things in another location within a day. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of, it's not just cost of hosting, somebody has to do that testing, and a lot of us are one person shop.
I can contribute to that, it's not a big deal. Because my area is, I mean, in our university, we do that, we take care of our own hosting, we take care of some of these things. And on top of that, all your organizations, all your libraries, you are interconnected. I mean, in this two-floor building, every computer is connected to the same network. It becomes much easier, I mean, to access the one from one central location. And in any case, before you all partnered with buy order, you were doing your own thing, I suppose. Or through another vendor, possibly, through another vendor, but in your own premises. Most likely, because those days cloud was not so popular, I guess, so. But there are ways and means, I mean, depending on your library size, consortiums and all of that, you have to gradually plan along with your regular.
And I know that the library I'm at moved to Koha with Bywater before I worked there, but a big part of that was, of the decision to go to Bywater was that they could stop having their own server, stop having a TLC server in their building, that they were responsible for the backups of. My boss got to stop taking home a hard drive every day.
And try to put it in the pipe to
Yeah.
walls and all of that. I wish our university has the money to do that, but still, what I'm saying is, well, that's the best way to deal with, where you are is the best place to be there. With some manner, but what I'm saying is, it can't just simply, leave it there, leave to them, we have to have some backup plan.
You're right, and I don't want you to be right.
That's kind of, you just summed up what I was thinking is, I know the Bywater does this backup and the last time I talked to somebody there, they did offer, that they could, send us, that they could make us part of the loop of storing that backup that they do regularly. That they could, they do save their data off-site. And they said that they could give us access to that. But I said no, because it's like, what the hell am I gonna do with it? I don't know how to do it.
I think increasingly what you're asking is a little bit unrealistic, and everybody who uses Gmail for their email hosting, like, who has a backup? Nobody. And I think that's increasingly that's the role.
I was just gonna say, we don't currently have a test server, so we talked with Bywater about getting a backup, some kind of an extract that we can load into a self-hosted testing server, so we can. This is like a project I'm hopefully gonna do this year. The winter maybe is to deploy our own testing server that we can use that has like some of our data in our configuration.
Yeah, ours, we can run a script that pulls the previous night's backup into our test server.
Well, even earlier today, you were setting up a Koha testing Docker.
Yeah.
And if you had a backup of your data, you could pull that into the Koha testing Docker and just mount it there to look at that backup and get whatever you need out of it. Toss it into the ether.
The idea of loading my patron data on
Is there maybe either your script or like the documentation that outlines the process of like going from like a backup file, getting it into the script?
I know it's written in I wrote it down in a Google Doc once that I no longer own, so like I don't know. It's a thing I have done once upon a time. So I know it's possible, but I do not know details. But I'll have this by water.
I can send you, I mean, there is a script that Bywater has. Yeah, that would be, if you, but we have a special script that removes the emails, so you can text email. Yeah, so it deletes everybody's email as it reports, and then we can delete the part of like one-off.
How many of y'all do have a tester?
I would also add to that, if you want a long detailed explanation of how to restore Koha from a backup, ask Fred. Just be prepared. Fred restores from backups all the time.
Yeah, from his process, I was, like, I had the same idea, like that he was talking about using, digital ocean.
Exactly. Some
It
dropbacks.
was probably just, Google Cloud, where we have Google Workspace. We already have a Google Cloud. Basically, just, my plan is to literally just do what I did on my laptop today, but in
In the cloud, yeah, that's good.
I will say we do, because our data is old, and we'll sometimes not update it for like a month or two, because we're trying to run as many long term. I don't allow it access from outside our network, because then passwords start to get, even those old user data, it's still active user data. So I definitely do not allow any outside access, you have to be MRI.
Sidebar, folks generally know what koha testing Docker is. It's it's software you can use to create a local Dockerized version of koha. So it creates a little like virtual machine within your computer and makes a koha there that you can just use locally on your machine. It's a great way to like test a patch or sign off on a bug, or just have a little koha that you can do whatever you want on, and then when you're done, you click a button and it goes away, and it comes back fresh and new and not broken the next time you want to do something else on it.
I think one thing you might want to do there before you, if I could go back in time,
Yeah.
the one thing you might want to explain first is some of the people might not know what Docker is.
Oh, and I know like this much about what Docker is.
Docker is a piece
Yeah.
of software you can run that allows you to create a virtual server essentially on your device. So you can load Docker onto your computer, and then you can create a virtual server using Docker files. So that makes it really easy to load. You can load a virtual koha. There are tons of things you can load in Docker. Koha is the only one I've ever done, but I know I've seen other things. So
if you Google koha testing Docker, Bywater has a post about how to set it up. I know they did their post setting it up on a PC. I have a Mac. My koha testing Docker will be slightly gimpy and weird forever, because it's slightly different in ways I don't understand, and I couldn't find anybody who did understand. Put it on a PC if you can, or a Linux machine, and bother everyone.
Even if you do have Windows, I recommend that you do, if your computer has the Windows subsystem for Linux, to set it up with that. Then all the documentation commands are all in Linux commands. Yeah, so it just like makes it a little bit easier.
It's a delightful thing to have access to. And if that sounds way too hard, have you all played with the sandboxes, which are basically the same thing, only online. But and it's if you Google sandboxes, there's a wiki page that lists and links to all the publicly available sandbox pages. Bywater runs one, PTFS over in Europe runs one, like somebody else.
Biblibra.
Yeah. And yeah, it's
Bibli runs a Koha sandbox. Yes.
so like this is the Bywater sandbox page where you can just come and click the create button, and it will very slowly make you a little koha that you can then log into and do stuff. It's also a nice way to test bugs. There's a place you can click in here to apply a patch from a bug and then run, do what you want to do. You don't have any like backend command line access. So there are a lot of things, like if you wanted to run a cron job and see how that works with the setup you did, there's really no good way to do that on the sandbox. On koha testing Docker, you could run all those cron commands. That's like, so there's some learning to do.
There's certain bugs that you can't really test with the sandbox.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, and if you come across one of those bugs that you want to test it in the sandbox, if you're trying to do a sign off and it says, go to Koha, test this, run the patch, and then you go back and test this and test that, see if this changes, and then run DB prove data stuff, and you don't have the ability to do that in the sandbox. What you can do is you can say, I signed off, I tested all the steps and everything worked, but when you're doing the bug comment, you say, I tested all these steps, but I couldn't do the prove. And then that will usually, somebody else will go in that can do that. It helps move the bug along when you say, I did all these steps, I just couldn't do this one because I was doing it on a sandbox. That's still not a bad thing to do when you're doing a sandbox sign off. And there's some other things. Sometimes it will say things like restart services. There is in the sandbox, there's a way you can restart all the services. It'll restart Plaque and all the other things that are running. And so that's one you can do. You have to leave the sandbox and go back to the sandbox creation tool and do restart services, and then go back to the sandbox, and then you can go through the next steps of the testing plan. So there's some things you can do and there's some things you can't. But if you're trying to sign off on something, when you get to the things you can't, say, I did all these things, but I couldn't do that in the sandbox, and somebody from the community will make a decision on whether that's good enough or not for a sandbox, for a sign off.
But actually, the best thing is to go with what you were thinking, to have it.
Yeah.
To have it in the cloud, because what
to walk me through this process of how to apply a patch here to the Koha Docker, testing Docker, and then Lucas had a patch that needed to get signed off, so, and it was like relatively simple test. So I just think surely we just did it. So I signed off on that.
Yay.
You'll be in the release note. You'll be able to go find your name on the about page in your Koha.
Yeah,
Even just for signing up.
For sign ups?
No, there is no just for signing up. It's very important.
you put my name as public. I signed off on a bug in a release where the English Parliament libraries had sponsored something or tested something. It was the only time in my life where I would be listed in the same list of as the London Parliament.
I was gonna be like, this is Brendan Waller, signing off.
But Brendan, I think the bug that you signed off on this morning, from what I remember looking over your shoulder, I think all of that you could have done on the sandbox.
Yeah, that one you could have done. Yeah. Except for, there was like one command that you had to do.
You have to rebuild the CSS, and there's an option for that in the sandbox. There are like, you can restart services, reindex, rebuild your CSS, like a few little things that are command line here on the testing Docker, but are sort of common enough that they don't.
Also, as a note, I'm like 90% sure it is written somewhere that if you can do everything except the prove step, you can just straight up sign off and not even ask permission.
Oh.
Because the QA team is going to do the prove step anyway.
Yeah, I heard that as well. I think that is there.
There are a couple of times in there where they'll say, do this, prove this, and then run tests. And sometimes depending on the developer, everybody's supposed to put a test plan in the bug that they patch. And sometimes those test plans are really good and they say, do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And other times they'll be like, go check it and see if it works. And there's no way to tell. Some test plans are better than others.
I
It
write my
depends on the
test plan,
developer.
if they lack one, I will write.
Yeah.
Here is what I did.
Yeah. And I've often said, could we get a test plan for this? And usually within a day or so, somebody will come back and say, oh yeah, here's a test plan.
Well, first of all, do you allow if you're a consortium or even if you're not, you allow the unwashed masses of your peoples that you serve to write reports in your system or are you doing all four of them?
We used to. And then, you know, I moved to Kansas and my first vacation day in Kansas was gonna be Labor Day. And, at 4:45 PM on Friday, somebody wrote a report and ran it. And then I spent the next 3 hours on the phone with Larry at Bywater trying to figure out why everything crashed. It's because somebody wrote a report that was trying to gather like data from every single table in Koha. And it completely crashed their system. And Larry actually, that was when Bywater started doing the thing that would sign an hour of thing. If it didn't run after a certain amount of time.
But was anybody about? Like, do you provide training to those people? Yes. Yeah. You haven't written training materials or anything?
I have some good SQL resources that I put full words, but, yeah, I don't.
Like, I used to. All I taught he had my simple web development library, like a 6-week course, and I don't have any of that stuff anymore. And they're asking us to teach them SQL and a very complicated database and just talking about calculating that.
And SQL is not really the hard parts of it, it's really, yes.
Yeah,
But still, you know,
I'm trying to.
do a nice job of it. I just don't want to reinvent the wheel, that's all. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, I did a couple of years ago, I did a thing for koha-US called very, very basic jQuery, which was followed up by very basic jQuery. And didn't you do
Yeah.
one
Christopher
on
and I have
SQL?
On SQL for Bob and Henry, I think it was.
And I'm sure there's a video of that.
Yeah, it's just on the koha-US YouTube channel.
It's a video somewhere out there, yeah.
For us, we don't allow it
Yeah,
yet, at least, because we just migrated, so we're still new. And like, the concern is, like, from my perspective, it's like, don't like roll it out so fast to many users. Because you want those lower number report numbers to be like the more high quality, like important reports. And I thought if you give it to 35 library directors and they're all learning SQL, you're gonna end up with a lot of disorganization, and then people running reports and asking questions, opening tickets about what the results are. So by sort of, we'll make any report that they request, but we want them to come through us so that we know what report we have and
that's very smart.
control that a little bit, at least for now, and then maybe we'll give them some time. I do like think it'd be cool to give them SQL access somehow, but at this point, a longer term plan. You don't want to like take it all on right now, because we're still going through our growing pains from the migration.
When I moved to my current job, it was like 2,800 reports in our system.
Oh, my.
And most of them had no documentation for what they did. It would be like, there were, before I was in Kansas, there were like 4 people managing the consortium, like part-time, like the part of their time of 4 people was devoted to this job. And then one of them left and it became 3 people doing that work. But, Jim would call Bywater and say, here's a ticket number. We need a report that does this. And somebody would write the report and then it would get added to the system as, RT ticket and a ticket number. And then the report, and then a week later, Mickey from Nichols would call and say, we need a report that does this. And somebody else would write almost exactly the same report. Next thing you know, 2,800 reports. And one of them, my favorite one was, the title of it was something like, we don't know what this does. And so my solution for that one was just delete it, but I've got us down to like 700 and something reports right now.
We already have like 400.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what they all do, for sure.
yeah, and
I don't like have a good handle on every single 400 report, so if we would probably already have 1,000.
Yeah. you're well on the way to 2,800.
This won't help you now, but they do all remember the last date they were run on.
Yeah,
I do periodically run it, like, which reports haven't been run for 3 years?
well, they do now.
Run them, testing.
Well, that's what we do. Like, yeah, I did send.
Actually, we don't have that problem in koha because our reports are very small, I mean, very small number. But we have similar problem in other areas. We don't know sometimes what the report does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what we started doing is a brief description of the report, what it does, we started putting in place. Because all of a sudden somebody will call for a report and you don't know which report does the job or whether none of the reports do the job, you don't know. So even in koha, the tweaks, some of our people have shown in the conference. I think Fred and somebody else have tweaked the check. I mean, you he did some different tweaks. Those are the things that really help everybody to figure out what exactly it is.
And then also the report has those categories.
Yes.
And it's really helpful.
Yeah.
categories and subcategories.
But even categories also, when you have 200, 400, I mean, how do you remember all of that?
One of the
There was a need for another report, and you have 50 reports there already.
So one of the things I would recommend to clams right now is create a category. You're going to have libraries ask for reports that are individual to them. Create a category for each library so that you can categorize those. Yes, that was 90% of the reports. And you know what happened is I would delete a report that hadn't been run in like 2 years. And then like a week later, somebody would call up and say, where's that report that Liz wrote for me 4 years ago that I need to run on every year when there's a month with 5 Tuesdays and 2 full moons? And I would say I deleted it. So I came up with I deleted it because nobody used it in the last 4 years, but I have a process that I use to back up my reports, that if I do delete one, somebody's super special report, I can go back and get it off of GitHub because that's where I store all the reports I delete.
And just to that, they're validating Georgia as well. At least 25% of our 700 odd reports are test. So and so.
Yeah.
Something. And
Sandbox is another popular one.
I'm still not going to turn it off because now the precedent is set. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I just took it away from everybody without even telling them.
On that cheerful. Acceptable information.
Thank you, everybody online who's stuck around. I hope you could hear everything we were saying, and we're closing up now, so goodbye.